For this vehicle behind me, you could say I've tested every fit and trim the manufacturer could throw my way, and with each test drive, really enjoyed each one more and more. So this week, it was less about understanding the numbers, what's under the hood, or even kicking the tires, because, well, I've been there, done that. So this week, it was truly about the experience behind the wheel. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, behind me is the 2021 Hyundai Sonata Limited Hybrid, certainly giving you some great fuel economy, and better yet, some great roadworthiness. First off, this vehicle is a head turner. Now, the Sonata has grown leaps and bounds since I got to know it several years ago. Kind of like me, it maybe has aged to perfection. Still, this one looking a lot younger than what you see here. Now, this is the hybrid, but not traditional in the sense of what we've all come to know in the hybrid world, mainly because what's going on up here, specifically solar panels, adding to the chargification of this vehicle. But before we get into all that, this vehicle pricing in around about $35,000 and has a premium-esque kind of feel to it, thinking it's maybe even $10,000 more than what you see here. So delivering a lot of bang for your buck. So what we tasked this vehicle with this week is taking us to a Major League Baseball game, the closest of which would typically be the Nationals, but unfortunately they weren't in town, so we were a little bit further around the corner over there to Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yard. Now, I'm not partial to one team or the other. I just like taking in the experience. Now, what that meant is about a 4.5 hour one-way trip. And since it was on a Saturday, I assumed the commuter traffic would be lighter and congestion not so thick, but unfortunately just not the case. Add to the mix a huge storm that seemed to follow us the entire way, dropping a huge downpour, giving us poor visibility and making it more of a white knuckle affair. That, of course, meant stop and go traffic, taking alternate routes and pretty much meandering along, making the trip last about 6.5 hours and kind of making it a, again, nerve-wracking affair. Now, as the rain was falling and all the overspray from all the vehicles, specifically even 18-wheelers, that was making it a blinding affair, not just up in front, but here on the windshield. One thing that really stood out was the windshield wiper operation. One thing I did like was the automation. As the rain lessened, the overspray, so be it. Obviously the vehicle knew it lessened the movement of the windshield. As it intensified, it clearly picked up as needed. Now, I certainly overrode that when needed, but I like the ability for this vehicle to sense what was going on around it. What it also sensed was here on the outer side. Oftentimes with all the spray going down the side, you can't clearly see what is beside you. And there's a couple things that help with that. First off, blind spot awareness, both visually here on the mirrors, but also there on the driver's display, allowing you to specifically see where something is on the left and on the right. Now, if you're like me and start to use your turn signals a little bit more, even on the open road, I know we don't traditionally do it a lot. As you go to maneuver from lane to lane, you use the turn signal. This vehicle takes it to the next level with a cast of a video down the side, allowing you to kind of give a quick glance there on the LCD display for the gauge cluster, giving you a visual of what may lie beside you. Not just relying on the blind spot awareness, but giving you a nice clear view. And that is crucial when we were in a storm like we were in. People always said to me it's better to be seen than heard. Not sure what they really mean by that, but it also applies here on the Sonata. When it comes to safety, it's better to be seen. Now, naturally, the guerrilla warfare really stands out, but when it comes to safety, this is prevalent. First off, with the daytime run lights, this outer component really give you a nice visual effect, because as we know, as it's getting cloudy, a little bit darker during the daytime, this is going to give a nice visual appeal to the rearview mirror of the person in front of you, let them know that there you are behind them. As the rain falls, the windshield wiper turns on, naturally the headlights are engaged, giving you again that visual presence of lighting up the road, and again allowing people to see you so much better and gives you that extra safety component. Now, certainly the front end on any vehicle really is intense, specifically when the headlights are on. One thing that's not equally as adept is at the back end of some vehicles. One thing we noticed as the clouds were rolling in, it got a little bit darker, even there in the middle of the day, is just the lack of intensity with taillight assemblies on a lot of vehicles. Thankfully, just not the case here on the Sonata. Now, naturally, of course, anyone taps the brake lights, that's going to give you that visual that we all need. But oftentimes, if we don't see them before that, where we're right up on them when they tap the brakes, and it's, well, too late to make any movements at that point. Thankfully, the Sonata really dresses things up. And oftentimes we look at design and say, this is just overkill. What is the point? Why not just stick to something here on the outer side? But really, in the rain event like we were in, this gives a nice safety visual long before you tap the brakes that lets people know, hey, I'm up in front of you. And they don't have to be inches or feet away, but instead many feet away, and they have plenty of time to react when you do tap the brakes. So a design like this is really more about safety than it is looks. Now, the numbers are important here on the Sonata, mainly because it is a decent sized sedan, around about 192 inches overall, wheelbase around about 111. As for width, just over 6 feet wide and around about 56 inches tall. Now, ground clearance just over 5 inches, so it doesn't have that road presence that I'm typically used to in big SUVs, but what it has, again, is just a decent overall size, because when you're going up against the big boys, trucks, SUVs, 18-wheelers, you don't want to necessarily be in the smallest option, but something like this definitely has a nice planted stance on the road. So the next best thing is a modest mid-size option like you see here. And again, all the safety components really delivers a great test drive, rain or shine. Now, when it comes to power on the hood, you're going to have a traditional 2.0 liter inline 4-cylinder engine coupled with nice electronic motors and, of course, the solar technology up top. As for the basic engine, around about 150 horses, 139 foot-pounds of torque, but combined horses around about 192 horses, giving you some decent pep in your step, which is really crucial, again, on the open road, not necessarily on rainy days, but definitely when you need to scoot in and out of traffic when conditions warrant. Ingress is made easy with the smart key system. Pretty much walk right up, place your hand inside, unlocks the front door with ease, put your hand in again, unlocks all the rest. Now, if you need to lock it up, just simply press around in this area and it locks up real quick. One thing I do like is the illumination at the front door handles. When it unlocks, it gives you a nice visual of the handle and simply open it right up. Also, the chrome around this vehicle really dresses it up and again gives this Limited it extra appeal. One feature that didn't really come into play on our rainy day, but certainly the next day when the sun came out and gave us that traditional hot summer day, is these nice sunshades here in the back. And I mentioned earlier how this vehicle prices in around about the mid 30,000 range with some features that you don't see in this segment. Thankfully, this is one of them. These nice sunshades that simply just swing up, help block the sun and cool the backseat drivers, because again, this isn't a tri-zone system, but instead just the venting there on the back of the center console. So any added help keeping the heat out of the back area certainly is appreciated. Now, one area on paper that may seem a little bit limited, no pun intended, is the legroom numbers. Now, what you're going to find up front is around about 46 inches. In the back, at first glance, 34. Now, that seems kind of at that breaking point of comfort, but thankfully 46 inches in the front is truly overkill for most individuals. So what you're going to find are these seats are moved forward easily a couple, 3 or 4 inches. That means here in the back seat, averaging about 37 to 39 inches, which is more than enough for anyone to find comfort. As for the overall layout, a little bit of individualized attention on the outer side, traditional middle seat aggravation, and of course down on the floor, that hump there, that's going to mean a little bit of fighting room when it comes to foot placement. Front and center on the dash, you're going to find a nice oversized touchscreen system, and coupling nicely with it is the LCD display for the gauge cluster. No traditional, but instead digital readout for the speed and the hybrid technology there on the right. Even better is the heads-up display. So right here in the middle, where I traditionally like the digital readout for speed, which is over here, obviously, this is going to give you a lot of those safety components I mentioned earlier. Even better, the heads-up display up top, which is very difficult to pick up on camera. That's going to give you those readouts for the blind spot awareness right there on the windshield where you need it, so you can look at a glance there on the windshield. It'll alert you as a driver comes up with, of course, that little orange indicator. Likewise for the passenger side. So again, a lot of safety components that really came into play during our trip up north. One unsung here that really goes unnoticed oftentimes is the cruise control, specifically on the Sonata with its adaptive technology, pretty much allowing you to set the pace of the vehicle, and it's going to monitor what's going on around you and either slow the vehicle up or take it back to speed. All that done right here. Even better is you can set the spacing between you and others, either keep it tight or give a little bit more safety spacing like I prefer. Another nice feature is the ability to turn on the assist, which pretty much allows this vehicle to kind of give you a tug here and there to keep you centered in the lane. Now, you are going to keep your hand on the wheel. This isn't autonomous, but I like the fact you can turn that on or off, because sometimes if you're like me, you like to switch lanes. If that's on, it is barely a tug of war, nothing really to cry home about, but I like that you can just simply turn it on and off. Now, the backseat drivers have the sunshades, but up front, really, it's all about the climate comfort, both when it comes to the dual zones up front, nice dial-in specific temperature settings, the mode select, everything right through here, really easy to do, but even better, especially in the heat of the summer like we have, is the cooled seats up front. Just simply pull down on the select area, go to 3 level if you prefer. If you need to take it back off, just simply push back up. Obviously, heated seats as well up here. When it comes to gear selection, non-traditional here as well with the push buttons. This does throw people a little bit because they're looking for a traditional selector, but instead this just makes everything look a little bit more sleek. What you're also going to find is the connectivity in the form of traditional car outlet, USBs, and the wireless charging right through here. One thing to note, you do kind of have to find that sweet spot, but once you do, you'll see the indicator light pop up there right beside that USB. Now, just below the gear shifter, you will find this other functionality. First off, the driving mode, you do have Sport, Custom, Econo, and Smart. Real easy to select, and even better, the LCD display transforms as you select and give you a visual cue. What you also see is this button here giving you the view of the cameras around this vehicle. If you press it at certain speeds, it will come right up here on the dash. As you can tell, I'm in drive, giving it a nice visual moving forward. Also, there's a surround view here on the outer side. If you place it into reverse, certainly nice backup as well. And what I like also on this vehicle is the reverse lighting. As much cascading of light almost as you have in the front, with the reverse lights giving you, again, that nice visual heads up as you're backing up. Now, for any hybrid, you can say it's all about fuel range, but for this test drive, you can say it was more about the safety components and feeling, well, powerful there behind the wheel. Not when you tap the gas, but your reassurance that this vehicle has your back, both in a visual presence sense, but also the ability to let people know that you exist, because in the rainy days that we kind of forget all about on a day like this, it does come down to mere inches sometimes of letting people know that you're there. And when you kind of minimize the impact of those around you, everyone gets to go home safe. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.